Welcome back to the channel. I hope this video inspires everybody to do some reading and also some book collecting. We're going to just give a brief sort of overview of the fall reading list. We're kind of getting, out of the fall reading list at this point, but we've managed to tackle a few books that we, had set for the goal for the fall reading list, and we're kind of slowly transitioning into the winter reading list. So we're going to talk about all that really exciting stuff, as well as the books that were as well as the new books. We're going to do like a pretty epic book haul here, so I hope you guys will enjoy this. I'm not quite awake this morning, but please bear with me. So let's get into the fall reading list, what we're in the process of reading, as well as what we've recently finished. The only book I've recently finished is Shakespeare Plane. Definitely not the most exciting book, but it was pretty informative, in the realm of Shakespeare. Sort of talks about how to interpret Shakespeare, what type of language he uses, how to interpret his themes, his plots, his character structures, all that good stuff. So having said that, it was a little bit highbrow. I didn't know exactly what he was talking about half the time, but it's a good reference book to sort of start to unpack sort of the difficulty of Shakespeare. So we might talk a little bit more about this in the future, but overall it wasn't my favorite read, but it was pretty decent. It's a little bit old now, and sort of talking in the realm of Shakespeare, we have a couple of Shakespeare biographies that I do want to sort of get into at some point, so we might do that. But that's pretty much it I have to say about Shakespeare Plane by William Leary. Up next, as you guys know, for the fall reading list, we're reading, I've got the cover all covered up with sticky notes, but we're reading the second volume of Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time Within a Budding Grove, which I'm quite enjoying very much. We're actually on page 280 now, so we're kind of hitting towards the halfway point here. Not quite halfway, but this is a really wonderful, delightful read. You sort of start to understand Proust's sort of agenda, his vision per se, a little more with the second novel. I would say it's a little bit more retrospective. The story has a little bit more turmoil in it. So I can't wait to do a sort of an analysis of Within a Budding Grove by Marcel Proust, to keeping lots of sticky notes, as we must do for Proust. And also with the fall reading list, we're about a little over halfway through Booker T. Washington, The Story of the Negro. And this book was not really what I was expecting, but it's actually a phenomenal book. It's super interesting. It's very readable. And it's just, it's a really great read. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll be doing a full analysis, probably a live stream of The Story of the Negro. And we're also going to be supplementing this with another book about slavery that we'll talk about, that's actually in the book haul, so stay tuned for that. But we're definitely keeping a lot of notes for Story of the Negro by Booker T. Washington. We've also started something that I was not anticipating we were going to start this soon. This was originally going to be for the winter reading list, but we've gotten into The Count of Monte Cristo, which is probably definitely the longest novel that I've ever attempted. It's like almost 2,000 pages, a little over 2,000 pages, depending on what edition you have, but this particular Penguin Classic version is just really great. It smells really fresh, smells like fresh newspaper, and we're already on page 40. And this book, don't be intimidated by this book, because the story is so engaging and it's such a page turner that you're not going to really be thinking about how long the book is. Having said that, it will take you some time to get through, and I'm not really attempting to rush through this. And this story probably does have some more complex elements, but I think for the most part, I'm just reading it for the sheer enjoyment of Alexandre Dumas and his compelling, engaging, thrilling story about Edmond Dante. If you guys are not familiar with The Count of Monte Cristo, there's a lot of great films that have been made. And also, you should definitely go back to the original source material of Andre Dumas's Count of Monte Cristo. So we'll keep you guys definitely, we'll probably be doing an analysis review of this at some point, maybe in January. I'm sort of anticipating we might finish it by then. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not going to rush through it, just going to enjoy the process. It's a really great adventure story about redemption and love and all that good stuff. So can't wait to get into that. Now, so as far as the fall reading list, we've accomplished, we read this, and we're already halfway through Story of the Negro, and we're halfway through Within a Budding Grove by Marcel Proust. And this kind of worked its way into the fall reading list. It was supposed to be for the winter reading list, but I guess, yeah, this is just sort of its own little endeavor, but we'll kind of lump it in with the fall reading list. And if you guys remember a couple videos ago, we talked about these two books for the fall reading list, which these are the only two that we have yet to start. I do plan on starting these at some point. I'm probably going to wait until I finish the Booker T. Washington book. That way we're not taking on too much, because right now we've got all three of these in the works, as well as another one that we're going to be starting, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That sort of ties in with Booker T. Washington. And I do want to cram in, so just to, in case I didn't hold this on the screen long enough, we've got A Few Acres of Snow, the saga of the French and Indian War. Can't wait to unpack this. And also we've got A Comprehensive View of Freemasonry, just sort of an esoteric read, just to sort of supplement some of my interest in the occult, the esoteric sort of stuff that we refer to in our videos quite frequently. I think this book will just be a good starting point. I'm not saying it's the best book on Freemasonry or whatever, but if you guys have any suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. So we're going to get into these maybe, I don't know, maybe next month. We'll just kind of see. I might start them sooner, I might start them a little later. And I do want to also start A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, as well as a bunch of other Christmas stories in here. A Christmas Tree, A Christmas Carol, and another one called A Good Humored Christmas. So this is just sort of this will be a little good introduction to Charles Dickens. I didn't realize how fast December was kind of approaching us. We only have another maybe 2.5 weeks, a little less maybe. But we're going to try to start this on December 1st, and maybe not blow through the whole thing, but at least finish A Christmas Carol, which is only about 100 pages. I've been itching to sort of get some Charles Dickens under my belt, and I think this will be a good occasion to sort of get into Charles Dickens. It's a really tiny paperback, should be pretty easy to read. So maybe you guys can join me on this Christmas journey of reading A Christmas Carol. So just know that we'll be starting this roughly around December. We'll see how it goes. And I also do plan to do another reread of King Lear, because we've been reading a lot about Shakespeare, and I want to, as we reread Romeo and Juliet and we reread Hamlet, I want to continue the same reread process with King Lear. We're probably going to switch back to this edition. I was reading a different edition that we'll talk about later in the future. But I'm probably going to definitely do a reread of King Lear probably soon. Just kind of take it a few pages a day, really absorb it, and just keep continuing the Shakespeare project. Sort of in the same vein of the Proust project, always reading Proust, always reading Shakespeare in the peripheral within reason. So that's pretty much the update on the reading update, right? And now we'll get into the book haul. We have a beautiful stack of new books here. I can't wait to discuss with you guys. Oh, it's pretty heavy. Basically acquired these over the last month, I would say. So let's get straight into it. We'll start with the small paperbacks first. We have this beautiful Signet edition of Lamort Arthur. I definitely plan on in the future of doing a really long segment on our sort of Arthurian medieval literature. I have to do a lot more research before we start delving into that. This is a really this is a rendition, a translation, not a translation, but an updated version by Keith Baines. It's probably not my favorite cover, but it's just a really great addition to have with the small paperbacks, as well as just a really good compact. Looks like one of the pages is folded here. Got to fix that. Just a nice compact edition to start unpacking Lamort Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. So I hope you guys will stick around for that or are interested in that. Also, small paperback, we have The Sea Wolf by Jack London. This is my second Jack London book. This will go really well in the Jack London collection. I do plan on reading White Fang this winter. So maybe we'll end up really liking Jack London, and we will read The Sea Wolf as well. So just, really expanding the horizons with some of the authors that we already have in the collection. but that's always good. And up next, this is actually the book that we're going to supplement with A Story of the Negro. This is a book called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, written by herself, Harriet Jacobs. This was published roughly around 1853 to 1858. And the reason that this stuck out to me is because not only is it about slavery, right, but I think this is going to be, and I haven't really discussed Story of the Negro, but like I said, it was not what I expected. It's a slightly different take on slavery than I was expecting to get from an African American writer. Dare I say, a little bit sympathetic towards slavery in Booker T. Washington's writing. So we are going to supplement that with something a little harsher, maybe a little bit more, I guess you could say, stereotypical of the slavery narrative in America, and we'll sort of compare them. You know, this is a feminine perspective, so maybe that will help us get a little bit, you know, context, a little more context. You know, Booker T. Washington obviously comes from a male perspective, so we'll get two different experiences between Story of the Negro by Booker T. and, you know, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. So, and yeah, so this is going to be added to the fall/winter. I guess we're into the winter reading list, not with December coming up now. So we're going to try to read this alongside the Booker T. Washington book, so we can do like a nice live stream, long format video on that. So yeah, I don't want to talk too much about this, but I really love the cover, really love the content, you know, that seems to be in here. So we'll check up on that later. Up next, we have this beautiful old school Penguin edition of The Betrothed by Alessandro Manzoni. Never really heard of Manzoni. So this is, I'll just give you guys a little recap. Reflecting Manzoni's masterpiece, praised by Goethe and Lamartine, is set in turbulent early 17th century Italy. Reflecting Manzoni's preoccupations with the suffering that is caused by tyranny, the plot is thick with noblemen who use their power to flout law and justice, wreaking havoc in the lives of those who are too weak or too poor to protect themselves. We got some interesting characters here named Don Rodrigo, the nun of Monza, Father Cristoforo. So I'm not sure what to expect from this. I'm assuming it's maybe sort of like in the vein of Dostoevsky, perhaps, or Wolfgang von Goethe, obviously, Lamartine. So it's sort of maybe a philosophical, critical, fictionalized critique of society at that time. So let me know if we have any Manzoni scholars out there. I really like these old school color-coded paperbacks of the Penguin classics. They were just actually a little bit nicer, I think, in my opinion, than the modern paperbacks. I mean, the modern ones are good too, but just a little bit more of a design element to the older ones. I don't know. Half dozen, 1/6 the other. Speaking of Wolfgang van Goethe, we have Goethe's Faust. I found this really, really nice edition of that, translated by Walter Kaufmann. So most people are familiar with the story of Faust, how the guy sells his soul to the devil, or something to that effect. This is an epic poem, and it actually is juxtaposed with the German translation, the original German translation, juxtaposed with the English. So this is going to be really interesting. What else is in here? I think this is more than just Faust. I think there's some other writings in here, possibly, but Faust seems like a really, really long. Is it a play or is it more like a poem? I'm not even sure. I think it's like sort of an epic poem. Yeah, I guess it's an epic poem, I guess you could say, but let's see here. So I guess the whole book is actually Goethe's Faust. So this is going to be really interesting to get into Faust. I think Faust is definitely part of the sort of the Western canon, I guess you could say. Maybe he's not even part of the Western canon. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to reading him. Up next, we have this interesting conspiracy book called The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall. So this should be pretty interesting. It includes 2 classic works on the mysterious origins and Unique Mission of America, The Secret Destiny of America, and America's Assignment with Destiny. So this should be pretty interesting, sort of in the realm of esoteric. This might actually supplement the Freemason book that we got. I know a little bit about Manly P. Hall. There's definitely some controversy there on terms of, you know, was he more of a sort of a sensationalized version of the true origins of Freemasonry in America and mysticism and the occult. But this is definitely going to be an interesting read, so I'll keep you up to date on this. Up next, we have another John Gardner book. We talked a little bit about the John Gardner book from last time. We actually found a really nice copy of Grindle. And this is actually a retelling of Beowulf through the monster's perspective, which should be pretty interesting, you know. So I'm definitely really happy to get this really nice copy of John Gardner's Grindle. I really like that copy. Yeah, very interesting. So we'll get into that at some point. Up next, we have this beautiful copy of Oscar Wilde's The Portrait of Dorian Gray, hardcover copy. So really interested to get into this. This is definitely part of the canon that everybody should read. And yeah, I know my friend Irene used to love Oscar Wilde, and that's actually not Oscar Wilde. I'm not sure why they put this guy on the cover, but anyway, maybe that's supposed to be Dorian Gray. So this is just a beautiful edition, kind of small print, but I definitely can't wait to get into this. This is going to be a great read. Up next, we have a couple biographies and a couple UFO books, some conspiracy books, and we have another ancient classic. So up next, we have Behind the Scream, a biography of Edvard Munch by Sue Perdue. I think she's a French lady, Sue Perdue. So this is going to be a really interesting, epic read. If you're not a fan of Edvard Munch, you definitely should be. There's some beautiful pictures of his art in here that I'll show you guys. Can't wait to get into this biography at some point. Edvard Munch is just a really, really inspiring artist. He was a Norwegian painter, a little bit crazy, a little bit mad, but he ended up living into his old age. And most everybody knows the painting called The Scream. I'm not sure if it's in here. Yeah, oh, there it is. Yeah, everybody knows that painting right there. So just a really interesting artist to unpack. This biography looks fucking awesome, so I can't wait to get into that. Up next, we have UFO of God, the extraordinary true story of Chris Bledsoe. I'm not sure exactly how true this story is, or I don't know much about Chris Bledsoe, but it does seem like a really entertaining read. One of my co-workers in the floral department, I actually don't work in the floral department, but I work right across from them, and she actually gave me this copy. So she said I could keep it. So this is going to be an interesting sort of occult UFO read. Let me know if you have any Chris Bledsoe scholars out there. Up next, we have this other book called Skinwalker Ranch, No Trespassing. Read at your own risk. This is sort of obviously maybe a sensationalized version about the Skinwalker Ranch. So I'm definitely looking more into sort of the paranormal, strange happenings at Skinwalker Ranch. So we'll keep you guys up to date on this. I'm not sure when we're going to read all of these, but they're definitely in our collection now, in our peripheral, and we're going to have our eyes and ears on them. Up next, we have this beautiful, epic Tolstoy biography, which I was really happy to find, by Rosamund Bartlett. So if you're interested in Tolstoy, this is one of the more recent biographies. I definitely think you should supplement this if you're reading War and Peace or Anna Karenina or any of the Tolstoy novels. Definitely can't wait to get into this at some point. And so we've talked about sort of supplementing the novels, supplementing the poetry, the plays with biographies and historical books. So we've definitely sort of getting more of those into our collection. Up next, we have this beautiful, amazing, awesome, I'll show you how great this is. This beautiful, awesome copy of Sophocles' Oedipus the King. Everybody knows Oedipus Rex. I've never actually read it. So this actually has the Greek version transposed directly against the English version. So this is going to be really cool. I don't read much Greek, but it's just cool to have it there. This has some beautiful illustrations in it as well. Just a beautiful hardcore or hardcover copy. I don't know why I keep saying hardcore. Just a beautiful hardcover copy with beautiful illustrations. This is definitely like a collector's edition, but it's also something that I will pick up and read and probably mark up and highlight. So just classic Greek plays, classic Greek literature. So I hope you guys enjoyed that book haul. We've got a lot we have to kind of get through over the next season of reading, but I'm super excited. I don't think I've ever been as excited or more excited about my reading as I am for the fall and winter reading list. We haven't constructed the full trajectory of the winter reading list. Obviously, we're still kind of in the fall reading list. And some of these, I assume, are going to maybe bleed into the winter reading list. Definitely, I know the Count of Monte Cristo probably will. And maybe even Marcel Proust might bleed into the end of December. I'm anticipating we'll probably finish this by the end of December. Maybe even sooner. It just kind of depends. But like we always say, you don't want to rush through Proust. You don't want to rush through, Dumas. You don't want to rush through anything, really. But I'm itching to finish some of these so that we can sort of do some analysis of some of these works. So make sure you guys send me an email at andrewmarlowe22@gmail.com. Send me a follow on Instagram at Andrew Marlowe Artist Official, and also be leaving some other links to my other channel in here as well. We've been doing some content over on the Andrew Marlowe channel. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys next time.